Hey, what's going on, you guys? So, in this video, I want to talk about the topic of a fragrance being unisex. Because, me personally, I don't mind when things lean masculine. I don't really care. But when it comes to, it never really bothers me if it leans more on the masculine side, if somebody calls something unisex. But when it comes to leaning feminine, I like my fragrances to lean masculine. So if somebody says something's unisex and it leans feminine, I'm kind of like, it's pretty unisex. Like me, as a reviewer, I'll definitely do my best to make sure if something's more than like a 5% deviation to one side or the other, I'll make sure to mention that if it's widely considered as a unisex fragrance. These are perfectly unisex, especially this one. I would truly consider Lattafa Dynasty a true 50-50 unisex fragrance. Liquid Brune, probably about 52-48, leaning a little bit feminine. Brioche Vanille, probably about 52-48, leaning a little bit masculine. But the idea isn't to be super rigid. Like I said, once it hits about a 5% deviation, that's where I'm kind of like, I'll do my best to make sure I give you guys that insight where it's like, it's pretty unisex, leaning slightly to one side or the other. These, if you call these perfectly unisex, I am not mad at you, bro. I agree. These are perfectly unisex. These are no more than like a 2 to 3% deviation, one going towards one side or the other. Like I said, when it comes to things that lean masculine, it doesn't bother me, so I tend to not pay as much attention to it. This is widely considered a very unisex fragrance, the OG Camera. And yeah, sure. But me personally, I would say this is probably about where it starts to get to about a 5% deviation. This is probably 55-45, leaning slightly masculine. Not by much though. This is, like I said, this is kind of where my boundary starts to kind of get set. I would say this leans at least 5% going towards the masculine side of things. But most people say this is unisex, and since I don't really care that it leans towards the masculine, I'm like, yeah, sure, this is unisex, but realistically, about a 5% deviation. These are widely considered unisex. My hands aren't as big as I thought. So these are widely considered kind of unisex fragrances. So this is Honor and Glory by Lattafa. This is Al Haramain Amber Oud, the Ruby edition. This is the clone of Baccarat Rouge 540 Extrait. And this is Banana Republic's Dark Cherry and Amber. I've heard these described as unisex fragrances. Like I said, once again, the idea isn't to be overly rigid. I would just like a little bit more detail. So in my channel, I'm gonna definitely do my best to make sure if something is more than a 5% deviation or more, I'm gonna say it's pretty unisex, but it leans slightly to this side or the other side. Like I said, these are unisex. These are unisex, perfectly unisex fragrances, especially this one. This one's 50-50. These, I would say, are pretty unisex, leaning feminine. Camera, pretty unisex, leaning a little bit masculine. But yeah, these, I mean, especially this one, guys, I would say this is like starting to get in the territory of not really being unisex. No, actually, I can't say that because it is still under 10% deviation, but this is like an 8% deviation. This is like 58-42 leaning on the feminine, and I'm not mad at it. It's pretty unisex, but this one definitely starts to kind of push into feminine, almost getting close to that 60-40, where it's like, okay, it's no longer unisex in my opinion. This one I would say is about a 5% deviation. Yeah, this is probably about a 5% deviation leaning towards the feminine. Same with this. This is about a 5% deviation leaning towards the feminine. I just think since this dark cherry and amber fragrance kind of has that amber kind of darkness to bring it down, it really does a good job of bringing it down. Same with this. This kind of has that almondy kind of notes to kind of neutralize it a little bit more, where I think the OG Rouge edition of this Al Haramain Amber Oud is leaning a little bit more feminine than this. But this, the Extrait dupe, the Baccarat 540 Extrait dupe, does a good job of kind of bringing it a little bit more towards the middle. So these two, I think they have those notes that really allow them to kind of stay pretty close. They have those darker notes to kind of allow them to kind of bring them back more towards the middle. But I would still say these are, like I said, about 55-45, leaning towards the feminine. This is a little too playful, and it doesn't have enough kind of deep notes or like something. Maybe some. It doesn't always have to be deep, kind of darker notes. Sometimes it can be like brighter notes to just kind of allow it to kind of come back towards the middle. This one's just very playful and sweet. This is starting to push it for me. This is, in my opinion, probably about 58-42, leaning a little bit towards the feminine. So once again, this is Honor and Glory by Lattafa. So yeah, like I said, on my channel, I'll definitely do my best to really make sure if there's something more than a 5%, if there's more than a 5% deviation, I'll make sure to tell y'all. This leans a little bit on this side or a little bit on this side. So that's it for this video, guys. Just kind of wanted to do something different and kind of just talk about a topic that I'm gonna really do my best to make sure I can kind of, you know, you might go through and watch 5 other reviews and have everybody say that it's unisex, when really there's about a 5% deviation. If you come here, I'm gonna try to do my best to make sure I tell you guys once it's kind of hit that 5% leaning one way or another. But anything under 5%, like I said, this probably leans about 2% feminine. This probably leans about 2% masculine. Anything that's under 5%, I'm like, I'm not gonna be that rigid about it. You know, I'm not gonna take it that serious. But yeah, that's it for this one, guys. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. Just kind of, like I said, wanted to talk about a different topic with this one and kind of have fun and explore kind of a topic within, you know, fragcom, within, you know, exploring fragrances. So that's it for this one, guys. Hope y'all enjoyed. See y'all in the next one.